Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is part 8 of my uh, commentary on the Delphi trial of Richard Allen. And it is what are we on? We're on Tuesday. Oh, Wednesday. We're on Wednesday, October 30th. Wednesday, October 30th, and today was the best day I've seen for the prosecution. I have been very concerned if Richard Allen is guilty, that the prosecution had a very weak case. However, what I see today is a little bit better, and so this has been their best day. That might convince the jury that he is bridge guy. All right. So what changed today that was different from what's been going on? All right. It is the confessions. And I mentioned this before, that probably the confessions were the one thing left that would really make a difference. Because so far, let me tell you the basics so far. So why I think up until now it's been a little weak. He, as far as witnesses, as to Richard Allen being in the park, the witnesses that saw a guy there, they weren't that good because the description wasn't Richard Allen. And it wasn't somebody who knew Richard Allen saying, oh, I know this guy. It was him at the park at the time the girls were there. So none of the witnesses are really great. However, Richard Allen was the best witness in that case because he put himself at the park. He went 3 days later and said, hey, I was in the park about that time. He tried to change the time, but at least he did confess that he was in the park. Now, the second thing that people say, well, he had similar clothes to Bridge Guy. Yes, he did. Similar. But the problem with the Bridge Guy clothing issue and also height and his face and all that is Bridge Guy Richard Allen. Now, a couple guys walking around the park can have very similar clothing. Guys aren't that fancy with their clothing. So it's not unlikely that you could go by and see one guy in some outfit and then later just another guy looks very similar. So, and since also Bridge Guy, the height is a little questionable, so it doesn't match Allen, and the face you can't really see, so nobody can say absolutely that Bridge Guy is Richard Allen. So that was not exactly great evidence. The third thing is the bullet. That was good circumstantial evidence, in the sense that there was a bullet found at the scene, which seems to have no reason to be there except that the killer of the girls racked the gun in order to scare them, and the bullet flew out, and he just never bothered to pick it up. So that was really the best thing. And it matched. The bullet could have been cycled through his gun. It could have been his ammo because he had the same ammo and gun that would use that ammo. So that was really good. And then the prosecution gets on the stand and they try to explain how, since it wasn't actually fired, that the little scratches when it cycled through matched. If you cycled another bullet through his gun, the witness said she thought they matched. My problem with that is that it can be confirmation bias. It's very faint, and she decides they look alike. It wasn't a blind test where a whole bunch of you cycle the same ammo through different guns or different 6 hours, and you put them in a line. You can say that's the only one that matches. Oh, it's Richard Allen's. That was not done, and I think that was unfortunate because it can be one person's opinion is not great. She did have some colleagues say, "Oh, I agree with her," but that's not exactly great either. So far, but until today, the best that I believe that the jury had was he did say he was there in the area, and he had clothes similar to the clothes, and had a gun and ammo similar to the bullet that was cycled through such a gun. That's not strong. It doesn't mean it's not useful. It's just not strong. And certainly, if that's all they had, reasonable doubt would be popping up real quick. So what happened today? That makes it different. All right. That improves things for the prosecution. All right. I'm going to read from a couple different articles because I want to comment on the different issues in those articles. This one is coming from Fox59.com. On Wednesday, psychologist Dr. Monica Walla told jurors how Allen confessed to the crimes in step-by-step detail during his time at Westville Correctional Facility. Allen told Walla that he was a recovering alcoholic, but he drank 3 beers on February 13th, 2017 before heading to the trails. Okay. That might be useful to say, although the beers threw me off, I wasn't my normal self, but actually he's recovering alcoholic, so he's saying he fell off the wagon, so that's why his brain wouldn't be in the right place. But on the other hand, a lot of times when alcohol is used before a crime, it's called liquid courage. 3 beers won't get you drunk, but maybe takes the edge off. If he's thinking, maybe today is the day I'm going to get lucky out there in the park. So then he said, he confessed to following the girls to the bridge. That's an interesting confession because before, when he was arrested, he said, I never saw those girls. And now talking to the psychologist when he's in the facility, he says, I followed the girls. That is a strong confession. Now, the defense will say he's just making up that crap because he's lost his mind. But for the jury hearing this, it's okay. Now you're actually saying you were there and following the girls. So he confessed to following the girls onto the bridge, and messed with his gun, which he speculated might have led to the round being found at the scene. Now, this is a problem, and the defense is going to jump on this, I would think. Again, let me just state, I am not watching the trial. Well, nobody's watching the trial. What am I saying? Nobody can watch the trial. They can only get notes and whatever we hear about the trial because it's not videotaped. So I can only go with what is publicly released, and this is in the media as opposed to Lawyer Lee has been going through very detailed stuff. And so if you really want to get all the details, I would suggest running over there. But I'm commenting on the major issues. He said he messed with his gun, which he speculated might have led to the round being found at the scene. All right, so now we run into a problem. Clearly, he already knew a round had been found at the scene. So therefore, he's not saying something only the killer would know. That's unfortunate. If he confessed like way early on and nobody had ever mentioned finding a round at the scene and he said there was a round at the scene, that would be great. But this is not the way it is. Obviously, he's already gotten this from either the media or his lawyers. So he's been fed information, essentially. Now, the other problem I have with this is it says he followed the girls onto the bridge and messed with his gun. Well, he didn't. If he messed with his gun at the bridge, then the round would have fallen onto the ground. And there, it's not where it was. It was between the 2 girls' bodies. The defense will jump on this and say, hey, see, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He didn't know where the round was. Although I believe by that time he learned about it, it should have been between the girls' bodies. But he's not claiming that's when it happened. My belief is that the killer, the reason the round was there, the unspent bullet, was because after he said down the hill, he got the girls to go where he wanted to, but then when you have to control 2 girls, what you want is them to be terrified they're about to be shot at that moment. So you rack your gun, get on the ground. And when you hear that, that's a very frightening thing to hear. You get on the ground. That's what I think happened. Well, I can't prove it, but I think it's reasonable. And he stupidly didn't pick up the bullet, but that would make sense to me as to what happened and why the bullet was there. But he didn't say that's what I did. And that's a problem for the prosecution, that what he's saying is not matching the crime scene, in my opinion. The defense will love that. All right. Allen told Walla his intention was to rape the girls. Okay. Which makes sense because although a serial killer and the guy who kills a couple girls like the way they were killed is a serial killer, rape is one method of power and control. So sometimes serial killers don't actually rape. They don't commit a sexual assault because that's not the way they get their jollies. Like David Berkowitz, son of Sam, he just shot people. It's like, I'm not going to rape you. I'm a nice guy. But so he could have just decided he wanted to kill. The thrill of the kill, the power he'd get over that. But he does claim he wanted to rape them, which most of the time that does kind of go along with it, this kind of thing. And one of the girls was naked, so it does look like the intent was a sexual assault of some kind. And I speculated there's possibilities that there's a number of reasons why there was no seminal fluid found at the scene. One, you still have to be careful of this. It could be because no rape ever occurred. It could be because he looked at the girls, got excited and jacked off in the trees. It could be because he used a condom in the commission of the crime, and sometimes even just in masturbation, you could use a condom so you don't actually leave semen at the scene. Or you can enjoy whatever you see, go home, and every night you fantasize about what you did, and that gets you off. So sometimes that's why there's no semen at the scene. So whoever did this did not leave semen at the scene, did not leave any DNA at the scene. So then the people always say, well, if he didn't leave any of his DNA, it couldn't have been him. Well, it was somebody, because somebody killed the girls, and whoever did it didn't leave DNA. So that's a silly argument. The killer didn't leave DNA, whether it was Alan or not. But now he's saying his intention was to rape the girls, but he was spooked by a van and made the girls cross the creek before slashing their throats. Okay, so he then covered the girls with sticks and walked out onto 300 North where he was parked. All right. He said he was spooked by a van. And I heard this earlier that was supposedly what happened, but I never knew where the spook by the van came from. Apparently it came from him. Now here is something very good for the prosecution. Many details of Alan's confession match the scene, including how the sticks are found on top of the girls' bodies. Well, the next sentence points this out. It is unclear, however, if Alan was already privy to these details due to receiving the discovery paperwork from his lawyers around the time he made the confessions. So that is a major issue. He could be just tailoring his confessions to the stuff that was in the media and was in discovery, which then makes it not as legitimate. Discovery paperwork would contain details of evidence associated with the case. The defense also pressed on Dr. Walla and revealed how she had been obsessively following the Delphi case, including posting online, listening to podcasts, and sharing details about what she saw with Alan. God. Right there, oh my God, that is the defense is thrilled about that. My God, that is so unprofessional, it's ridiculous. There is no way that she should have shared a damn thing with this man. It was not her place to do that. She should listen, let him tell what he wants to say. No way should she be sharing details with him. She might have just made the defense a very happy bunch of people. Oh, I'd fire her in a heartbeat. But now the legitimacy of Alan's confession is once again a burning question after a witness who lived near the murder scene provided a seemingly small detail that may lend legitimacy to Alan's prison confessions. This is something that is good for the prosecution. What is it? Brad Weber, and I have never heard this before, so this is new to me and interesting. Brad Weber took the witness stand after Dr. Walla on Wednesday afternoon. Weber owns property next to Monon High Bridge Trails off North 625 West that was searched the initial hours after the girl went missing. Weber told investigators that on February 13, 2017, he left work and drove home. He said this would put him driving down 625 North and pulling into his driveway around 2:30 p.m. Alan told Dr. Walla in his confession that it was a van that spooked him into abandoning his plan to rape the girls and quickly kill them. Weber told jurors that on February 13, 2017, he was driving a white van. Furthermore, the timeline also seems to add up with the case laid out by the prosecution, as phone pings of Libby's phone have the girls being led down the hill at 2:31 p.m. The phone quits moving at 2:32 p.m. Witnesses also report seeing a black Ford Focus on 300 North on February 13, 2007. Revealed during Wednesday's testimony by a former Delphi police chief, Stephen Mullen, was that a search of vehicle registrations showed that only one 2016, Ford Focus SE was registered in Carroll County at the time of the girl's death, and that Focus belonged to Richard Allen. Okay, this is great stuff for the prosecution. Richard Allen claims that a white van spooked him, and he gave up what he was planning to do because he thought somebody would see him. And there's a guy with a white van in the vicinity that pulled in exactly the time that Richard Allen says this is what happened. That is great information. Now, I don't know the exact layout. I didn't know that he could see a white van from where he was with the girls. So I don't know this, but I'm guessing if that's what he says he was spooked by a white van, he must have been able to see a white van. And so he thought, oh my God, somebody might see what I'm doing. That is great for the prosecution. Also, the fact that he's the only one with a black Ford Focus of the whole town. That's also good. So there's two things there that put him at the scene with the right car and seeing the white van that is next to the scene, which he claims he saw and that was driven by a guy who was there at the time. This is probably the best, what is called indirect evidence, circumstantial evidence. It's not direct evidence. I explained that in my last video. If you haven't seen that, go back and look at part 7. I explained that there's direct evidence and indirect evidence. Direct evidence is something that is that pretty much you got a witness who sees what happens. You have a video that records what happens. Indirect evidence is stuff that you have to infer. Well, if he saw a white van and stopped what he was doing, and there was a white van in the area, that might mean that those things are connected. And if a black Ford Focus was seen in the area, and the only one is his, you can infer that he was probably driving that black Ford Focus. Now, this is circumstantial evidence or indirect evidence, and it's fine. People say, oh, well, if it's not like DNA, it's useless. No, it isn't. If you have enough circumstantial evidence, indirect evidence, it's fine, because enough of it can then make you say, the level of coincidence is going like this, because there are coincidences. Some people will say, oh, there's no such thing as coincidences. Oh gosh, yes, there are. I've worked on enough cases to go, are you kidding me? How is this possible that two serial killers like living a block apart and a murder victim in the middle, and then it turns out to be neither one of those guys killed that person? I mean, how is that? It happens. Coincidences do happen. You have to be careful of that. And that's why you have a thing called reasonable doubt. So you don't just take a bunch of coincidences and go, well, it's pretty unlikely, but okay, I'm guilty. You have to be sure that there's enough that links together that you can say, this is past the point of coincidence. This was a good day for the prosecution. Now let's go further. It should be noted that there were 8 black Ford Focuses of other models registered in the county and surrounding counties. And the defense will jump on that. Okay, so right there's only one black Focus, but there are still other people in the area, and maybe one of them was rolling through. They can use that to foment some doubt. All right. Police also previously testified that a vehicle they believed to be Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was captured on video near the trails on the day the girls vanished. Mullen agreed, however, that the body type of the Ford Focus was similar across several different years. Mullen also relented that the vehicle captured on video couldn't be confirmed to be an SE model, and that's where you start getting that little doubt thing going. All right. During cross-examination, defense attorney Andrew Baldwin pressed on Weber's timeline and claimed Weber didn't go straight home after work and instead dropped off a trailer. Weber denied this multiple times in a contentious exchange between the pair. This is again showing reasonable doubt. I don't know who is telling the truth. Does the jury? And that's the problem. All right. Now, let me go to the other very interesting commentary. This is mostly about the confessions, and I think this is very important. All right, here we go. Is that it? Okay, sorry a second. No, that's the same one. Got to find the other one. Seriously, now I'm having trouble. Hold on a second. I've misplaced the one I was looking at and reading and thought this is great. Hold on a second. Let me go back to my Google search. Maybe I'll find it. Because I like this because there's a whole bunch of information here that is really, really important. Okay. Let me find the one I liked. Maybe it was this one. Hold on. I also need to hook in my iPad before it dies. 1 minute. Have patience. All right. Oh Lord, that's not it. Okay, hold on a second. I had it up here, but it somehow vanished away from me. Hopefully this is it. Maybe Fox had two things. All right. Yeah, Fox had two things. That's why I was confused because they're both Fox 59, but there were two different articles. All right. Now, here's what I thought was interesting. All right. Jurors they got to watch two videotaped interviews with Allen. And I wish I could watch those videos. People are complaining that there's no cameras in this, so we can't see the interviews. They think that's horrific. As a profiler, I would like to see things for myself rather than get somebody else detailing it for me. But this is, when you come right down to it, this should be a somber, focused trial that only involves the people there, the victims, families, the defendant, the lawyers, and the jury, and quite frankly, all the rest of us. It's not our business, quite frankly, at this point. Of course, YouTubers want all of that because you make a fortune if you can, put up the videotapes. But that's not what justice is about. It's not about YouTubers making money. All right. So anyway, jurors watched two videotaped interviews. Okay, with Allen. We also heard from a warden and several correction officers. At one point, he said he killed the girls with a box cutter and he disposed of in a CVS dumpster. Okay, he did say that. One of the problems is that we don't know if they were actually killed with a box cutter. Unfortunately, the determination on what weapon was used was really vague. It was like, could have been a knife, could have been a box cutter. Okay, which one was it? If it were one thing, it would be really important, because I don't believe anybody ever said a box cutter was used in the commission of this crime. If it was proven to be used and he didn't know about it and he said he used a box cutter and chucked it, that would be great. But that he said he used a box cutter as opposed to, if it could be any weapon, then it's very meaningless. And box cutters, let's face it, are very common. I have a box cutter in my car. Why do I have a box cutter? You know what I do with it? I cut boxes. And sometimes I cut animal feed bags because my daughter has a lot of animals next door to me, and sometimes I have to feed them. So I have a box cutter. So I'm not killing people with it, but I have one. And a lot of people have one. So it's not like an incredibly unusual weapon, like some kind of ninja tool or something. And I don't know that if it wasn't the weapon that killed the girls, because they didn't seem to know. It's not great, although it's interesting that he would say that, oh yeah, I used a box cutter and threw it away. It's a confession, and it's interesting. Okay, let's go on. On day 11, Monica Walla took the stand. This is the woman I think needs to be fired, but okay. She was employed as the lead psychologist for the Indiana Department of Corrections and was technically a contractor. She primarily worked at Westville and provided services to Allen while he was in custody. Walla took on Allen because of the high-profile nature of this case. She first saw him in November 2022. He was frequently on suicide watch, which meant correctional personnel had to keep him on close observation. Walla didn't initially discuss the Delphi murders with Allen and discouraged him from talking about the case with others. That's reasonable. On April 5th, 2023, patient complaint. Allen said, I don't know what that quite means. Allen said, I killed Abby and Libby. I'm sorry. First of all, if he killed Abby and Libby, he probably wasn't sorry. He's just sorry he got caught. He said he made sure they were dead so they didn't suffer. Okay, I'm pretty sure that when you get your throat cut, you do suffer, but you don't want them to suffer too much. So I guess what he's saying is, I'm not a sadist. I didn't torture them. I only killed them. Isn't that that's what Berkowitz said? I'm not going to rape you. I'm just going to kill you. Thanks. Appreciate it. I always wanted my throat cut, and one of them had their throat cut because it wasn't working. Boy, I'm going to say that wasn't pleasant. But he said he made sure they were dead so they didn't suffer and believed they were deceased by the time he left. Um, Considering he spent time putting branches over their bodies, if he is the killer put branches over the girl's body. That took a reasonable amount of time. I'm pretty sure he knew if they bled out and were like clearly dead before he left. He thought they were deceased. He was back on suicide watch at that time. He became tearful and said he committed the murders by himself, which I do believe Bridge Guy acted alone. All this conspiracy crap, garbage. According to Wallace's account, Allen said his intentions were, quote, sexual in nature, and he alluded to having a sex addiction. Sorry, not an addition, an addiction, a sex addiction. First of all, sex addiction is garbage, fake psychology crap. It's like a habit, like anything else. People like to say they're addicted, like they don't have any control, but no, it becomes a habit to them. If you spend a lot of time on Pornhub, probably you got a bad habit. If you spend a lot of time on worse places than Pornhub, which include violent sexual stuff, you have a worse habit. Sex addiction. I don't get enough sex with my wife, therefore I'm addicted to porn. I don't know. I have to rape girls because I have a sex addiction. That's a big fat lie. That's just nonsense. But what's interesting about it is he said it was going to be sexual in nature, even though the girls were not theoretically raped. And he's claiming it as a sex addiction. One of the things he said earlier on was, don't really want you going through my computer because, I got some stuff on there, but I really don't want you to see. Many of us could probably say that. As a profile, I can definitely tell you, don't go through my history. It looks bad. But yeah, that's true. For certain people, when you go through their history, obviously you will see what they're interested in. If they're interested in art, you'll see a whole lot of art sites. If they're interested in porn, you're going to see a whole lot of porn sites. If they're interested in violence, you're going to see way more of that. And what happens is that oftentimes a person who is going to commit a crime doesn't think when they're doing all their searches and going to all their sites, they're not thinking of the crime at that moment in time. That's their fantasies that they're acting out in private, getting into whatever they're getting into. So let's say he was interested in barely legal. That's what they say when you have girls who are actually legal age, but they look like they're 13. And then you go to barely legal sites so that you don't actually have child pornography, but the fantasy is still having sex with young teens. And also that's not pedophilia. It's I've forgotten it now. Ebophilia? Ephebophilia, sorry. Ephebophilia. And people confuse those two. Pedophilia is when you're actually interested in sex with a young child before they get to puberty. But when you get young teens, that's an ephebophile. In other words, they're women with womanly parts. You just like them young and fresh. So that's ephebophilia. And I don't know what sites he was on. I would be curious to know if he was on sites that were barely legal, where he was getting off on sexually enjoying himself at home, looking at these websites, which were youngish girls. And if there's a violent stuff as well, which is really concerning, when a person watches stuff that is not romantic, not even just hot sex, but violent sex, or sex that is a person is essentially under the power of the person committing the act, they're tied up. uh, or they're whatever, they're begging, they're doing whatever makes that person who's watching it feel like they have power. They're watching that the person who is committing, the perpetrator of that sex act is committing a kind of sex act which is with an unwilling victim, and they get off on that. And it's all fantasy. It's not really real. So it's not such a bad thing to watch it. Yeah, it is. If that's the kind of crap you watch, I do not want you anywhere near me, my family, anybody I know. I mean, you're a scuzzbag. If you think it's enjoyable to watch women being basically raped, sexually assaulted, humiliated, if you think that's a fun thing, you're a sick son of a. And that's what he's watching. That's what he is. But I don't know what he was watching. We haven't heard that yet. But he's saying that he had a sex addiction, which is a way to say, I had no control. Yeah, you did. You just chose to honor your habit. All right. He believed the girls were older, perhaps 18 or 19. Sure. And I'm 30 years old. He also thought they could have been as young as 11. Which one is it? He also said he was an alcoholic. There's his excuse for things that he does wrong. And had been both a victim and a perpetrator of child molestation. Holy crap. All right. This is really interesting. First of all, one of the things you say if you want to get people to sympathize with you is to say you are a victim. And there's this whole thing out there which says that a lot of perpetrators of sexual crimes, especially pedophilia, were actually abused when they were children. So this is something you can jump onto, glom onto this. Oh, no, when I was a child, I was sexually assaulted. Therefore, I had that my mind messed up, and therefore that's why I committed these horrible crimes, because I too was a victim of those crimes. I didn't get over it. It settled in my brain. I couldn't help myself. That's what he's saying. And he's also saying he's a perpetrator of child molestation. I would like to hear from his daughter. Did he molest her? If you molest your daughter, and molest is usually a nice word for whatever worst thing you did to her, you're a psychopath. You are a child sex predator. I don't know. And then when he's saying child molestation, I don't know if it means when she was little or when she was this age, so that he could be the phebophile that I'm talking about. Just likes them young-ish and fresh. But that's an interesting thing to say. That is something creepy to admit. So when you are, one of the things that happens when you're doing a confession is that you usually want to confess to something that doesn't make you look like a piece of shit. What he's confessing to doesn't make him look good. It doesn't make him look good to his wife, his daughter, or anybody in the community. So why is he confessing to something that is that slimy? Maybe because he's a slime ball. But so that's interesting. I think that will affect the jury and go, yeah, maybe he really did do it because he's a creep. All right. He wanted to apologize to the girls' families. Oh, that's what everybody wants to do after they kill their kids. I want to apologize. I'm not really that bad a guy. Just, I had a bad afternoon. Sorry. Alan told Walla he was glad he didn't kill himself because, he so wanted to kill himself. And he told the police he didn't care if he died, but now he doesn't want to kill himself. And expressed appreciation for being housed and clothed at the facility. He told her he slept with his Bible and had committed himself to God. Oh, God. How many times have we heard this one? I found God. I found Jesus. I found Allah. Therefore, I'm not the person I was. So even if I did do the crime and have to go to prison, all of you people who know I did the crime now know I found God. So then you should forgive me and be still love me, be my friend, send me money, come to conjugal visits, let me have sex with you. All right. All right. So he thought his thought process was all over the place at times, and his emotions were up and down. Okay, well, whatever. During a May 2nd report, Walla noted that Alan had said he killed the girls, asked if it was okay for him to kill himself, and added he didn't want to die because he was too much of a coward. Well, I believe that he's a coward. But again, he's a coward about his own life. But killing people is not necessarily cowardly. It's actually quite. People always say, "Oh, such a coward." It's kind of brave. If you go and you commit a mass murder and you shoot about 30 people and you could get killed in the process. That's not really cowardly. It's sick, but it's not necessarily cowardly. I go with sick more than I go with coward. Um, he had trouble staying on topic, but Walla noted he didn't appear psychotic. That's very important. Um, she believed he had situational psychosis, meaning he would have episodes of psychosis at times and then go into remission, or he was faking it at times. All right. I'd like to know her credentials. I really would. On May 3rd, Alan wanted to call his wife and recount the events of February 13th, 2017. He said he saw his mother in the morning in Mexico, Indiana. He was offered an invitation to go out to lunch, but he declined. Instead of eating lunch with his mummy, he decided to drink 3 beers and kill girls. He saw Abby and Libby walking on the trail and followed them. And by the way, when I always point out with serial killers, and if a person does this, they are a serial killer. Whether they have done it before or going to do it after, I don't know, but that's what they are. Serial killers troll, serial killers hunt, serial killers fish, not for the little fishies in the stream, but for girls. People say, well, it was like, how did he have the stuff with him? Like the gun, the knife, because if you're that kind of guy, you have that stuff with you because you never know when you're going to get the opportunity. And you may troll and troll and troll and search, you may be walking through the park and I don't know, a dozen times and never see anybody. But that moment that you see that person, that's your opportunity and you go for it. It's kind of like a person who takes condoms with them when they go out clubbing. They don't always get to have sex with somebody they pick up that night, but hey, if you get somebody, you got to have those condoms, All right. So then he did, as he saw them walking on the trail. He said he did something with his gun, and that's when the bullet fell out, which I don't believe. He ordered the girls down the hill with the intent to rape them. By his account, he saw something, either a man or a van, he can't seem to figure it out, that startled him. He ordered the girls across the creek, cut their necks, and then covered their bodies with tree branches. He walked to his car, which he parked at a nearby building. It seems like it's awful quick and kind of unnecessary. He's a guy the girls don't know. He told them down the hill, and he sees a van. Why not just run like hell? Why would you then waste all your time doing this? I don't know that that's all that happened. I don't know the van really spooked him because the time it took him to cover up their bodies to kill them, to change up the clothes, to put the clothes in the stream, to cover up the bodies. I don't believe for a minute he was spooked by any damn van. Sorry. Because if that were true, he'd just run like hell. But he spends what looks like another hour there. Isn't he worried that the van guy saw him and will send somebody there or somebody else is going to come by? So I'm not sure I believe that. I think that's his excuse for saying, I did what I did. I wouldn't have done it except I got spooked. I was only going to rape them. But then the guy spooked me. I cut their throats. Okay. By his account, he saw something, either a man or a van. It was unclear in court. That startled him. He ordered the girls across the creek, cut their necks, covered their bodies, walked to his car, which he parked at a nearby building. And Walla noticed that Alan seemed relieved after the admission. Okay. Alan continued to live his life as normal after the killings, which I do believe he's guilty. Absolutely. People say, well, the killer would have left town. No, because then you look guilty. And besides which, if he's not feeling guilty and nobody came to his door, he told them he was there at the park. He did a 10-minute interview in a parking lot and nothing happened after that. That dude went on for 5 years, not thinking he was ever going to be brought in, whether he's guilty or not. So yeah, of course he's going to stay in town. He's not going to run away. And May 5th, he was a high risk for suicide. On May 9th, he said, I just want to sign my confession. He talked about planning his last meal and killing himself. He exhibited no evidence of psychotic symptoms. See, he's not psychotic. If he's a killer, he's psychopathic. He had troubles with his prison-issued tablet. Oh, that's a shame. He was able to call his wife. During that conversation, he mentioned the electric chair and asked if his family still loved him. I didn't do everything I said I did, but I killed Abby and Libby. His wife hung up on him, which is what you want to do. But now she's in court. Why? She now believes that he didn't do it? That's interesting. People say, well, if she knew he did it, why would she be in court? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is a lot of times there is that big denial thing. In spite of everything my husband has said and every creepy thing he's ever done, and the fact that I have maybe evidence myself that he has issues, I cannot believe he would do that. I sleep with this man. I eat with this man. I go on vacation with this man. I have normal conversations. Hey, hon, let's have coffee. And I can't believe that man that I know, which has a lot of normal behaviors, would do something like this. And it's very true that many serial killers live with their wives for years, and that wives do not believe they're involved in something awful. Why? Because the awful thing only took an hour. The rest of life is 24 hours a day. So when you're watching, serial killers live normal lives. They go to work, they watch movies, they do whatever. They go to their daughter's wedding, all that kind of stuff. They do normal things. So it's hard to see them as killers when they do normal stuff. But they do. That's what they do. So she may not believe it. Or she does know he did it, but she's somehow saying he had a psychotic moment, he lost his mind, whatever, and she's willing to forgive him because she can't give up the relationship, because she doesn't want her daughter to think her father is a horrible person. So she's just going to go along with the program. There are women who know their husbands are serial killers and still go to jail and visit them, prison and visit them, and have sex with them. Go figure. All right. On May 11th, Alan said he wanted closure by apologizing to the girls' families, adding that he needed to forgive himself. First of all, he doesn't feel guilt. If he's apologizing to the girls' families, he wants something. He needed to forgive himself. Oh, because if you forgive yourself, you're still a decent dude. After a break in the proceedings, Waller discussed his bizarre behavior, and she said he believed he was faking symptoms. Okay. And on April 10th, the report, she mentioned that the papers were strewn all over the place in his cell. She believed the documents from the discovery material from the case. That's what he was reading, everything that Discovery had. She said it appeared he received those materials around the time he started confessing to the Delphi murders. Now this is in the defense court. I mean, they're going to be happy about this. In other words, he got that stuff from them, and it threw him out, and it threw him out to outer space. He lost his mind, and he thought, "Oh my God, they're accusing me of all these things. Screw it all. It's over. I can't even fight this. It's just too exhausting. I'll just say I did it." April 13th report, Wallace said Alan's behavior became stranger with him lying in and consuming feces. Now, I don't know what the consuming feces part really means. Are we talking about he took a little tiny taste to make it look like he was consuming feces? Or was he picking up a plate and going, "Look, I crapped today"? I mean, I want to know which one it is, because there's a big difference. It's hard. You can probably put up with taking a little taste, but eating a large portion, you probably do have to have some kind of psychosis. And I don't know. Here is a very vague bunch of crap. And I hate vague stuff. So what does that even mean? And I don't know. She believed he was having an emotional breakdown from guilt. No, God, you're a psychologist. Do you not understand psychopaths do not have guilt? Fire her. And believed the behavior surfaced after he saw the discovery evidence. Yeah, maybe like, oh, crap. They got me, maybe. Maybe I'm going to go down. I can't fight this. My defense attorneys, maybe I think they don't have a good, they're not going to save me. An August 3rd report noted that Alan said he wanted to go to heaven, but was afraid of dying. I'm going to say, Alan, if you killed the girl, you weren't going to heaven. You didn't have to worry about going there. You were going the other direction. He was confused and not rational anymore. Okay. So during cross-examination, someone pointed out that she was following the case so closely, she didn't disclose her interest in the case to her employer. You never disclosed to the employer that you're following the case so closely, Rosie asked. We discussed it when we learned he was coming into the facility. She told the court she never made a formal report. When Rosie asked if she would stop following the case if she had to do it all over again, she said probably. She said Alan's psychiatric history involved major depressive disorder. I still don't understand this psychiatric history. Where is the psychiatric history? I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it exists. I want to know, did he actually go to psychiatrists over the years for a major depressive disorder, or is he just saying he had a major depressive disorder? I don't even know. And said it was possible he demonstrated characteristics of dependent personality syndrome. Okay, whatever. When Rosie asked if Alan was a fragile man while in IDOC custody, she said, yes, he was. He's fragile. Rosie asked her about his cell conditions and said the lights were always on. Waller told the court she believed he could dim them. She believed that, but she didn't know it. So what the hell? Stop saying things. You can't believe something. That's a fact. It either happens or it doesn't happen. So why? She should say, I don't know. Alan had no privacy in the cell, and Rosie suggested he was more secure or restricted than other inmates. he couldn't mingle with other inmates, Walla told Rozzi. After lunch, Walla continued to be pressured by Rozzi and admitted to traveling to Monon High Bridge to visit the area of the crime. She told the defense attorney that she followed true crime in general, not just the Delphi case. Okay, so she's an internet crime freak. I think she's inappropriate to be his psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever it is, she sucks. During a conversation with Allen, she allegedly told Allen at points to maintain hope by stressing that he had supporters out there. Gag me. Wallace spoke further on Allen's mental decline while in prison, specifically in April 2023. She noted fatalistic delusions. If you think you're going to go to prison for life, it's not probably a delusion. Hopelessness, probably because, again, if you think they've got you, and then it's not a delusion. Insomnia. Okay, well, I have insomnia too, and I don't have to sleep in a crappy bed in a prison cell. So. And suicidal ideations. Oh, because you were caught, if you are guilty. Or if you weren't guilty, you're still pissed off. And it's like, man, I don't want to deal with all this crap. Either way, it's mental decline. I think it's just mental realization. That's the way I would put it. Did you discover he had a grave disability? Walla was asked. Yes, she responded. A grave disability? What the hell is a grave disability? All right. This led to Allen's first dose of involuntary medication on April 13th, 2023. On May 11th, he received a second injection of haloperidol, a drug used for mental disorders. Wallace stated how Allen continued to show signs of self-harm, such as bruising from banging his head, which led to another involuntary injection on June 5th. Now, he could either be losing his mind or he could be pretending he's losing his mind. Walla agreed when asked if Allen met the criteria for serious health-bound mental illness. She agreed that it was reasonable to believe that being kept in solitary negatively affected his mental health. In a May 2024 statement, Wallace stated that she began questioning whether or not she believed Allen was faking his symptoms. And then she stepped down from the witness stand. Okay, so those are basically the two articles. Walla should be fired. In my opinion, she's not a good witness because the defense would certainly say that she fed him stuff, that she encouraged him to confess, that she encouraged him to all this stuff. But for me, the most interesting part is his confessions to sex addiction and some of the things he said that put him in the creepy area. Because I'm thinking to myself, now I've been divorced 20 years. My ex-husband, I was married to him for 25 years. If he were arrested for something, and then he said, I had a sex addiction, watching sites with little girls, I would like, what the hell? There's just no way in God's earth. That is not the man. I may be divorced from him, but that is not the man. He would never, ever, ever say something like that. He might say, oh, of course, I'm a dude. I watch some porn, but hey, it's just normal porn. He would never, ever admit, because he's not that kind of guy, just something that is so creepy. It would horrify him to admit to that. He's admitting to stuff that is creepy. That is not something a normal man would do. Be willing to admit to that. You might be willing to admit to a lot of things, but not that. You'll be okay. I committed adultery, sure, but messing around with little kids, no way. That's not happening. Are you kidding me? That's creepy. That is. So his wife. So I'm thinking about, I haven't been married for 20 years, but I would never believe that of him. Even not just because he's my children's father and I want them, they love their father, but because it's not him. It's simply not. So when he's saying that crap to his wife, he's saying to his wife that I want to have sex with little kids, that I murder little kids. Can you forgive me? That dude's creepy beyond creepy. And the question is, if he didn't kill them, what kind of man says that stuff? Because in the original stuff, when he was talking to the detectives, he was going, I wouldn't do that kind of thing. Except he said that one statement which really bothered me. He said, even if I thought about doing something like that, I wouldn't do that. Whoa! I mean, who would think about doing something like that? So there was that little teeny thing that he said that sent up a red flag to me. Who even thinks about that? If you even think about that, oh, I couldn't do it, but I would think about it. What the hell? So I did think it was a slip up, and that to me was interesting because he had no reason to have to say that. So I think the prosecution came out ahead on this one. This is the first time I've seen him to be creepy as a profiler. I'm like, you are showing me through your, not so much the actual crime scene, but you're showing me through your other commentary that you go to porn sites which you don't want people to know about. And so I'm going to say it's not your basic stuff. It's something you really know shouldn't be seen. You've admitted to the fact that you could consider having sex with girls. You said even that you wanted to have sex with girls. You could have said, I killed them, but I wasn't going to have sex with them. But you said you wanted to have sex with them. And you were willing to say they might have been as young as 11. So you're saying a lot of creepy crap that I don't care how much pressure you get on your brain. That shouldn't be something you would be willing to say. Because that shows that you're kind of sick. You're sick in the head, sick in your heart. You're like a psychopath. Is that the stuff you want to admit? Admit it to your family, your daughter, your wife? You could say you could come up with anything but that. But if you come up with that, I'm going to say you have thought about those things. Because as a profiler, I know that. There's things you can think about. I could do that. But there's things, the fantasy always comes before the actual action. So for example, I try to do things that are realistic. If you thought, what could I do? Who could I have sex with? What would I like? Would I be willing to do drugs? I'm just trying to pick out things that maybe you make uncomfortable. Not once in my life have I ever thought about doing heroin. That doesn't cross my mind. The thought of getting together with people and stabbing myself with a needle in my arm and yeah, no, that's not even it's not a fantasy. I can't say, well, I thought about it, but I wouldn't do it. No, I didn't even think about it. It doesn't cross my mind. I've never once thought about having sex with little children. I guarantee you, never crossed my mind. So there's things that you think, I could do that, but I definitely couldn't do that. And that's because if you can't think of it in your head as something that brings you some kind of pleasure, some kind of something. I've never thought about committing a crime. I've never thought about committing a homicide. I can't think about stabbing somebody. I can't do it. Can't even fathom it in my head. But if you can fathom it in your head, you might want to get help. There are things that you shouldn't be able to fathom. And so there's these different levels. And people will be able to fathom, like, let's say a cougar lady, somebody my age, right? Maybe a person who's my age, who's 69 years old, could fathom, wouldn't it be nice to have sex with a man who's in his 30s or 40s? I'm not saying that's me, but that's legal. And maybe a woman who's my age could think that would be fun. So maybe if the opportunity arose, she might take it. But if that same woman says, I think having sex with, 12-year-old boy would be hot. That's when you get those teachers in school, who keep getting arrested for having sex with their elementary school kid, their elementary school student, because they did fantasize that. So that's what I'm just saying. This is a human thing. You have to be able to envision something being something you would do before you can actually do it. He's saying he envisioned it, and that makes me question him. Now, whether the jury thinks so or not, I don't know. But I think this was a win day for the prosecution, absolute win day for the prosecution, because he didn't just say, the first thing is the possibility that he said he was at the scene, he followed the girls. That stuff about the bullet doesn't fit. And so that's interesting to me. And that's something for the defense. They went on that. But suppose he got tripped up by the van. I don't know if he really did, because again, maybe he saw the van and he's trying to say I didn't do more to them for that reason. But yet he's there for like God knows how much longer. So I don't believe it. But that does put him there when the van is there. The black vehicle puts him there. The indirect evidence, the circumstantial evidence grows, and the direct evidence, which is his confessions, is really quite interesting. Then the biggest problem that the prosecution has is what's her face, Walla, who should not be in that position. She's a terrible psychologist. She's not acting professionally, and therefore she could screw this case, because we don't know what information she fed him or what she told him he should do or say. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe she fell in love with him, because that has happened before too. So, but those are my thoughts for today. Let's see what comes up tomorrow. But I would say the prosecution is at least in a better place today than they were yesterday, if you're looking at this case from who's winning, prosecution, defense. There is more today that makes him look guilty than there was yesterday. But we have more days to go, and we shall see what they come up with the defense has to counter some of the damage that was done today. The prosecution also has to deal with Walla. So, yeah, so we shall see. Anyway, that's it for today. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. Please do click the bell to be notified. I probably will do some more on this case, because it is a quite interesting case day by day. So I will see you the next time I do something on it. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Bye.